You wake up each morning feeling unprepared for the battles ahead, lacking the mental discipline and strategic clarity to face your daily challenges with confidence. Every day begins with uncertainty and anxiety instead of the focused determination that separates winners from those who merely survive. I am Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary swordsman who never lost a single duel in over 60 encounters and authored the timeless strategy guide, The Book of Five Rings. What I discovered about beginning each day with warrior discipline will transform your morning routine into a foundation for unstoppable success. Using the same principles that made me undefeatable in life or death combat, the ancient way of the warrior may seem distant from modern life, but the mental preparation and strategic thinking that kept me alive in duels to the death can give you the edge you need to win your daily battles. But first, like this video, subscribe for more warrior wisdom, and comment below where you're watching from. I want to know which corners of the world are ready to embrace the way of the sword. Let me take you back to where this wisdom was forged in the fire of real combat, where a single moment of unpreparedness meant death. I was 13 years old when I fought my first serious duel against Arima Kihei, a seasoned warrior from the Shintaru school. The night before that encounter, I lay awake, consumed by fear, my mind racing with thoughts of defeat and death. I had trained with wooden swords for years, but this would be real steel, real blood, real consequences. As dawn approached, I realized that all my physical training meant nothing if my mind was scattered like leaves in the wind. That morning, I discovered something that would change everything. I found a flat stone near a small stream and sat in complete stillness as the sun rose. For the first time in my life, I felt my mind become perfectly clear and focused. The fear didn't disappear, transformed into sharp awareness. The anxiety became energy I could direct. When I faced Arima Kihei later that day, I moved with a precision and confidence that surprised even me. I defeated him not through superior technique, but through superior mental preparation. That victory taught me that the real battle is won or lost before you ever face your opponent. Physical skill alone, no matter how refined, crumbles under pressure if your mind lacks discipline. I spent the following years developing what I came to call the way of the warrior, a daily practice of mental preparation that made me undefeatable, not just in combat, but in every challenge life presented. Years later, when I faced Sasaki Kojiro on Ganru Island in what would become my most famous duel, I arrived hours late intentionally, while Kojiro waited in increasing agitation, his mind becoming scattered with anger and impatience. I had spent those hours in perfect mental preparation. By the time I stepped onto that beach, carved wooden sword in hand, the battle was already won. Kojiro's legendary technique meant nothing against a mind that had been forged in the discipline of daily preparation. This is what most people never understand. The stakes of your daily life are just as real as those life or death duels. When you wake up unprepared, scattered, reactive, you're walking into battle with a dull sword and clouded vision. The pressure of deadlines, difficult conversations, important decisions, and unexpected challenges will defeat you just as surely as an opponent's blade. But when you begin each day with the mental discipline of a warrior, you transform every challenge into an opportunity for victory. The difference between a warrior and a victim isn't physical strength or natural talent, the commitment to daily mental preparation that creates unshakable confidence and crystal clear focus when it matters most. But the true secret wasn't in the sword, it was in how I prepared each morning before the world awakened. I discovered what I call the sacred hour, that precious time before dawn, when the world sleeps and a warrior can forge his mind for the battles ahead. Every morning, without exception, I would rise in darkness and make my way to a simple water basin I kept outside my dwelling. This wasn't just about physical cleansing. It was about washing away the mental clutter that accumulates like dust on the soul. In that sacred hour, I would sit in complete stillness and engage in 3 essential practices. First, I would empty my mind through meditation, allowing all thoughts and worries to settle like sediment in still water. Second, I would visualize the day ahead, seeing myself moving through challenges with perfect calm and strategic clarity. Third, I would set my intention, not just what I hoped to accomplish, but who I needed to become to accomplish it. Most people begin their day reactively, immediately checking messages, rushing through routines, allowing the external world to dictate their internal state. This is the mindset of a victim, not a warrior. When you start your day reacting, you spend the entire day catching up, always one step behind, always at the mercy of circumstances beyond your control. A warrior begins each day proactively, from a center of calm strength. Before the world makes its demands, you've already established your priorities, clarified your intentions, and prepared your mind for whatever challenges may arise. This creates what I learned to call preemptive victory. You've already won the most important battle before your day officially begins. The sacred hour teaches you the difference between being driven by circumstances and driving circumstances toward your desired outcome. When you've spent time in stillness and preparation, you approach each interaction, each decision, each unexpected challenge from a place of centered power rather than scattered reaction. I remember mornings when I knew I would face particularly dangerous opponents. The temptation was always to spend that time worrying, rehearsing scenarios of defeat, or frantically reviewing techniques. But I learned that worry is just negative visualization. You're training your mind for failure. Instead, I would use that sacred hour to see myself moving with perfect timing, reading my opponent's intentions before he acted, responding with fluid precision to whatever strategy he employed. This daily practice of mental preparation creates something most people never experience: unshakable confidence. Not the false bravado that crumbles under pressure, but the deep certainty that comes from knowing you've prepared your mind for success, regardless of external circumstances. Your sacred hour doesn't require elaborate rituals or perfect conditions. It requires only the commitment to begin each day as a warrior rather than a victim. Whether you have 20 minutes or 2 hours, whether you're at home or traveling, whether you feel motivated or resistant, the sacred hour is where you reclaim control of your life and prepare your mind for victory. This preparation revealed to me the first of 5 essential principles that govern all success, what I came to understand as the 5 rings of power that every warrior must master. This sacred preparation revealed the first of 5 essential rings of power, the ground ring, which governs the foundation upon which all victory is built. Throughout my years of wandering and dueling, I kept detailed maps of the various terrains where I practiced and fought. Each location taught me something crucial about the relationship between environment and success. I learned that a warrior who ignores his ground is a warrior who courts defeat, no matter how skilled he may be with his sword. The ground ring represents your environment, your daily routines, your physical space, and the foundational practices that either support or undermine your success. Just as I would never enter a duel without first studying the terrain, noting the angle of the sun, the firmness of the soil, potential obstacles and advantages, you must never begin your day without first establishing solid ground beneath your feet. I remember fighting on a hillside near Kyoto, where the morning dew had made the grass treacherously slippery. My opponent, focused only on his sword techniques, lost his footing at the crucial moment and left himself completely vulnerable. The victory came not from superior swordsmanship, but from superior understanding of the ground we stood upon. This taught me that mastery of environment often matters more than mastery of technique. In your modern battles, the ground ring encompasses everything from your physical workspace to your daily schedule. from your morning routines to the tools and systems you use to organize your life. Most people fight their daily battles on unstable ground, schedules, chaotic environments, inconsistent routines that change based on mood or circumstances. A warrior establishes consistency in foundational practices. Your sacred hour must happen at the same time each day, in the same place when possible, following the same essential sequence. This creates what I call ritual power, the accumulated strength that comes from repeated, intentional action. When your foundation is solid and consistent, you can adapt to any challenge while remaining centered and strong. Your physical environment must support your warrior mindset, just as I would clear my practice area of distractions and obstacles. You must design your spaces to promote focus and clarity rather than scatter your attention. This means removing clutter, organizing your tools, and creating an environment that reminds you of your commitment to excellence rather than pulling you toward mediocrity. The ground ring also governs your relationship with time. A warrior doesn't hope to find time for important practices. He creates time through strategic scheduling and ruthless prioritization. Your morning preparation, your learning, your physical training, your strategic thinking, these cannot be left to chance or fitted into whatever time remains after less important activities. I developed the practice of ground auditing regularly, examining my environment, routines, and foundational practices to identify weaknesses that could undermine my effectiveness. Every month, I would assess whether my current ground was serving my highest purposes or simply maintaining comfortable mediocrity. When your ground ring is solid and well established, you create the stable platform from which all other victories become possible. But ground alone is not enough, must be paired with the fluid adaptability of water. Once your ground is secure, you must master the element that flows through everything, the water ring, which governs flexibility, timing, and natural flow. Over the years, I collected smooth stones from different rivers where I trained and meditated. Each stone taught me something about how water moves, always finding the path of least resistance, yet capable of wearing down the hardest mountain over time. These stones reminded me that true strength often appears as gentleness, and the most powerful victories come through fluid adaptation rather than rigid force. I learned this lesson dramatically during a duel with a master swordsman, whose technique was flawless but whose timing was mechanical. He had trained his movements to perfection, but he fought like a machine rather than flowing like water. Midway through our encounter, I abandoned my planned strategy completely. Instead of matching his rigid rhythm, I began to move when he expected slow, still when he anticipated movement, aggressive when he prepared for defense. This fluid adaptation confused and ultimately defeated him. He had prepared for a contest of technique, but found himself in a dance where the steps kept changing. His perfect form became his weakness because he couldn't adapt when the circumstances shifted. That day I understood that water defeats rock, not through force, but through persistent, intelligent pressure applied at exactly the right moments. The water ring teaches you to read the current of every situation, the energy, mood, and rhythm of the people around you, the natural timing of opportunities, the flow of events that either supports or opposes your intentions. Most people try to force outcomes through sheer effort, like swimming against a powerful current. A warrior learns to read the current and use its power to reach his destination with less effort and greater speed. In your daily battles, this means developing sensitivity to timing and rhythm. There are moments when people are receptive to new ideas and moments when they're closed. There are times when markets are ready for innovation and times when they resist change. There are periods when your energy naturally flows toward creative work and periods when it's better suited for administrative tasks. Rigid planning assumes that Tuesday at 10 a.m. will always be the same as Thursday at 3 p.m., but the water ring teaches you that every moment has its own unique energy and optimal use. When you learn to sense these natural rhythms, you can accomplish more in an hour of aligned timing than in a day of fighting against the current. I developed what I called no wasted motion, the practice of eliminating any action that doesn't flow naturally toward my intended outcome. This meant saying no to opportunities that felt forced, postponing conversations until the timing was right, and recognizing when to press forward and when to wait for better conditions. The water ring also governs emotional flexibility. In combat, I learned that anger makes you predictable, fear makes you hesitant, and excessive confidence makes you careless. The warrior learns to feel emotions fully, but not be controlled by them, allowing them to flow through like water, a channel, providing information without dictating action. This fluid mastery of timing and adaptation requires inner fire to provide the energy and drive that transforms gentle persistence into unstoppable force. But adaptation without inner fire lacks the power to transform, which brings us to the fire ring, the element that transforms gentle persistence into unstoppable force. I kept the bellows from my father's forge as a reminder of how inner fire must be continuously stoked and directed. Fire without air dies quickly, but air without fire produces no heat. The fire ring taught me that passion and drive must be cultivated with the same discipline as physical technique, and that emotional energy, properly channeled, becomes the most powerful weapon in any warrior's arsenal. Early in my journey, I carried enormous anger at my humble origins, at masters who underestimated me, at a world that seemed designed to reward mediocrity over merit. This anger could have destroyed me, as it destroys so many who never learn to transform raw emotion into focused power. Instead, I learned to use my forge bellows each morning, not just to maintain my swords, but to remind myself how controlled fire creates strength, while uncontrolled fire creates destruction. I remember a period when I had suffered several defeats in practice matches, and my confidence was shaken. The temptation was to either suppress the frustration or let it burn without direction. Instead, I channeled that emotional energy into the most intensive training period of my life. Every morning, I would stoke my inner fire through focused visualization, seeing myself moving with perfect technique, feeling the satisfaction of victory, experiencing the respect of worthy opponents. This wasn't just positive thinking, it was emotional alchemy. I took the raw material of frustration and disappointment and forged it into determination and drive. The fire ring teaches you that all emotions contain energy, and energy can be directed toward any purpose you choose. The same anger that destroys relationships can fuel breakthrough performance. The same fear that paralyzes action can generate heightened awareness and careful preparation. The key is learning the difference between destructive rage and constructive fire. Destructive rage burns everything around it without discrimination. It makes you reactive, impulsive, and unpredictable in ways that sabotage your goals. Constructive fire burns with controlled intensity towards specific outcomes. It makes you passionate but precise, driven but disciplined in your daily battles. The fire ring manifests as your ability to kindle enthusiasm for important work, maintain intensity during difficult projects, and generate the emotional energy needed to push through resistance and setbacks. Most people wait for motivation to strike them like lightning, but a warrior learns to create fire on demand through specific practices and mental disciplines. I developed what I called the warrior's passion, a controlled burning that could be intensified when needed, but never consumed its host. This meant learning to rest without losing momentum, to maintain drive without burning out, to channel competitive energy constructively, rather than letting it create conflicts that distracted from my true purpose. The fire Ring also governs your relationship with adversity. When challenges arise, you can let them dampen your fire and reduce your energy, or you can use them as fuel to burn even brighter. Every obstacle becomes kindling. Every setback becomes an opportunity to demonstrate the depth of your commitment. Yet even the strongest fire needs the breath of spirit to sustain it, which requires mastering the wind ring that governs your awareness of all external forces. Yet even the strongest fire needs the breath of spirit to sustain it, which requires mastering the wind ring that governs your awareness of all external forces and opposition. I crafted a simple directional indicator from bamboo and feathers to read wind patterns during my travels. This humble device taught me that invisible forces often determine the outcome of visible conflicts. The warrior who ignores the wind finds his arrows blown off course, his timing disrupted, his strategy undermined by forces he never bothered to understand. The wind ring represents your ability to perceive and navigate the external forces that surround youth, politics of your workplace, the hidden agendas of competitors, the social currents that influence decision makers, the economic and cultural trends that create opportunities or obstacles. Most people are defeated by forces they never saw coming because they focused only on their immediate opponents while ignoring the larger environment. During my years of studying different martial arts schools, I spent countless hours observing not just their techniques, but their weaknesses, blind spots, and underlying assumptions. The Nitin school relied too heavily on simultaneous attacks with two swords, leaving them vulnerable to patient defensive strategies. The Ito school emphasized single, devastating strikes, making them predictable against opponents who could weather their initial assault. This deep study of opposition taught me that every strength contains the seed of weakness, and every approach leaves certain areas undefended. The warrior who understands these patterns can position himself to exploit gaps that his opponents don't even know exist. Victory often comes not from superior force, but from superior positioning against opposition that has revealed its limitations. In your modern context, the wind ring governs your strategic intelligence, your ability to read the room, understand organizational dynamics, recognize emerging trends before they become obvious, and position yourself advantageously relative to competition and changing circumstances. This requires developing what I call 360-degree awareness, consciousness that extends beyond your immediate tasks to encompass the full environment in which you're operating. Most people operate with tunnel vision, seeing only their immediate responsibilities while remaining blind to the larger forces that will ultimately determine their success or failure. They work hard on projects without understanding the political currents that will decide funding. They develop skills without recognizing which capabilities will be valuable in the emerging economy. They build relationships without sensing the shifting alliances that will affect their future opportunities. The wind ring teaches you to cultivate multiple sources of information and perspective. Just as I would never enter unfamiliar territory without scouts reporting on conditions ahead, you should never make important decisions without understanding the external forces that will influence outcomes. This means listening to voices outside your immediate circle, studying trends in adjacent industries, and maintaining awareness of how your actions appear to various stakeholders. I learned to turn external pressures into advantages by understanding their true nature and underlying patterns. Market downturns that devastated competitors became opportunities for strategic advancement. Organizational changes that created anxiety for others became chances to demonstrate leadership and adaptability. Opposition that sought to undermine my position instead revealed the strategies I needed to strengthen my foundation. But there is a fifth ring that transcends all others, the space where true mastery reveals itself. But there is a fifth ring that transcends all others, the void ring, which exists in the space between action and non-action, between knowing and not knowing, between being and becoming. In my later years, I carried an empty scabbard alongside my swords as a reminder that true mastery exists not in the techniques you possess, but in the space of infinite possibility that opens when you release attachment to any particular approach. The void ring represents the paradoxical power of emptiness, the strategic advantage that comes from maintaining openness to what cannot be planned or predicted. I discovered this principle during what I came to consider my most perfect duel, facing an opponent whose skill matched my own. I found myself in a state I had never experienced before, placed beyond conscious technique, where my body moved with wisdom that transcended my thinking mind. I was completely present yet completely empty, fully engaged yet utterly detached from the outcome. In that state of no mind, I moved with a precision and timing that seemed impossible even to me. This wasn't the absence of awareness, it was awareness so complete that it required no effort to maintain, like a still lake that perfectly reflects the sky while remaining completely undisturbed by what it shows. I became capable of responding to my opponent's intentions before he had fully formed them himself. Victory came not through strategy or technique, but through being so completely present that the right action arose spontaneously from the situation itself. The void ring teaches you to find comfortable emptiness within your morning routine moments of stillness, where you're not trying to accomplish anything, solve anything, or become anything. This isn't laziness or passivity. It's the active cultivation of space, where new possibilities can emerge without being forced into existence by your agenda or expectations. In your daily battles, the void ring manifests as your ability to make decisions from calm center rather than reactive emotion, to remain open to solutions you hadn't considered, and to act with timing so precise that it appears effortless. Most people are so busy pursuing their goals that they miss opportunities that exist outside their predetermined path. I learned to cultivate what I called strategic patience, the willingness to wait in productive emptiness rather than fill every moment with activity. This meant becoming comfortable with not knowing the answer immediately, not having a plan for every contingency, not needing to control every variable. Instead of fighting uncertainty, I learned to dance with it. The void ring also governs your relationship with success and failure. When you're attached to specific outcomes, you become predictable and therefore vulnerable. When you can hold your goals lightly while pursuing them wholeheartedly, you become like water, able to take any shape required by circumstances while never losing your essential nature. This paradoxical mastery, being completely committed yet completely unattached, creates the space where breakthroughs happen naturally. It's the difference between forcing solutions and allowing them to emerge, between imposing your will and aligning with the deeper intelligence that governs all successful action. These 5 rings must be integrated into a daily practice that transforms ordinary mornings into the foundation for extraordinary achievement. These 5 rings must be integrated into a daily practice that transforms ordinary mornings into the foundation for extraordinary achievement. I kept a small temple bell that I would ring each dawn to mark the beginning of my daily spiritual and physical preparation. This simple sound served as a declaration to myself and to the universe that I was choosing to begin this day as a warrior rather than allowing circumstances to shape me into a victim. The bell's resonance reminded me the ritual has power far beyond its physical components. My complete dawn ritual followed a precise sequence that honored each of the 5 rings in turn. This wasn't arbitrary ceremony, it was practical magic that prepared my mind, body, and spirit for whatever challenges the day might present. Through years of refinement, I discovered that the order mattered as much as the individual practices. First came grounding, establishing physical and mental stability through connection with my environment. I would place my feet firmly on the earth, feeling the solid support beneath me. then organize my immediate space with intentional care. This honored the ground ring by creating the stable foundation from which all other preparation could flow. I would check my equipment, review my schedule, and ensure that my external environment supported rather than hindered my intentions for the day. Next came flowing, honoring the water ring through gentle movement and breath awareness. I would stretch my body like water, finding its natural course, moving slowly and mindfully through positions that awakened my physical awareness without forcing or straining. This phase taught my nervous system the rhythm of fluid adaptation that would serve me throughout the day. Then came igniting awakening, the firing through focused intention setting and energy cultivation. I would visualize the day ahead, seeing myself moving through challenges with power and precision, feeling the satisfaction of achievement, experiencing the confidence that comes from thorough preparation. This wasn't mere daydreaming, it was rehearsing excellence until it felt more real than mediocrity. Fourth came scanning, honoring the wind ring through strategic awareness and intelligence gathering. I would consider the people I would encounter, the forces that might influence my day, the opportunities and obstacles that required my attention. This phase ensured that my awareness extended beyond my immediate concerns to encompass the larger environment in which I would operate. Finally came centering, entering the void ring through stillness and open awareness. I would sit in complete quiet, allowing all thoughts and plans to settle, opening myself to possibilities I hadn't considered, finding the calm center from which right action arises spontaneously. This complete sequence rarely took more than 20 minutes, but its effects lasted throughout the day. The ritual created what I called psychological armor, a protective confidence that couldn't be shaken by unexpected challenges or setbacks. When your day begins with intentional preparation rather than reactive rushing, you approach every situation from a position of strength rather than desperation. The compound effect of this daily discipline accumulates over time like interest in a bank account. Each morning's preparation doesn't just serve that single day, builds the mental habits and spiritual strength that serve you for years to come. But understanding the rings is only half the battle. You must also master the enemies within that will try to sabotage your warrior's discipline before external opponents ever get the chance. I kept a polished metal mirror that served as my mirror of truth, a tool for the most difficult practice any warrior must master. Each morning, I would look into that mirror not to admire my appearance, but to confront the inner enemies that could defeat me more surely than any external opponent. These demons live within every human heart, and they are more dangerous than armed adversaries because they attack from within your own mind. The first demon is fear not, the healthy caution that keeps you alive, but the paralyzing terror that prevents you from taking necessary action. In my early years, I would wake some mornings consumed by fear of the day's challenges, my mind spinning stories of failure and humiliation. Fear whispers that you're not ready, not worthy, not capable of handling what lies ahead. It disguises itself as prudence while actually serving cowardice. The second demon is doubt, the voice that questions whether your efforts matter, whether your goals are achievable, whether you have what it takes to succeed. Doubt is more subtle than fear, because it poses as rational analysis. It will examine your past failures with microscopic precision, while remaining blind to your strengths and growth. Doubt convinced me during several dark periods that my path was futile, that I should accept mediocrity and abandon the warrior's way. The third demon is ego, the false pride that makes you overconfident in easy situations and defensive when challenged. Ego seeks validation and recognition rather than genuine improvement. It wants to appear powerful rather than become powerful. I fell victim to ego many times in my youth, taking unnecessary risks to impress others and refusing to learn from masters who could have accelerated my development. The fourth demon is complacency, the satisfaction that creeps in after success and whispers that you've achieved enough, that you can relax your discipline, that you've earned the right to coast. Complacency is perhaps the most dangerous because it attacks when you're strongest. It convinced me after several victories that I could skip my morning preparations or reduce the intensity of my training. Each demon manifests differently in modern life, but their essential nature remains unchanged. Fear keeps you from having difficult conversations, pursuing ambitious goals, or taking calculated risks that could transform your situation. Doubt makes you question your value, your capabilities, and your right to achieve extraordinary results. Ego makes you defensive when receiving feedback, competitive in ways that damage relationships, and focused on appearance rather than substance. Complacency makes you satisfied with good enough when excellence is possible. I developed specific techniques for defeating each demon through daily practice. Against fear, I used progressive exposure, deliberately choosing small challenges that built my confidence while expanding my comfort zone. Against doubt, I kept careful records of my growth and victories, creating undeniable evidence of my capability. Against ego, I practiced humility by seeking feedback and learning from anyone who had knowledge to offer. Against complacency, I regularly raised my standards and sought more challenging opponents and situations. The key insight is that you cannot eliminate these demons. You can only choose which voice you follow when they speak. Once you've conquered the inner battlefield, you can master the outer game through the art of strategic thinking that separates warriors from mere fighters. I spent countless hours studying the ancient game of Go, moving black and white stones across a board that taught me more about strategy than any martial arts manual ever could. This simple board became my laboratory for understanding how individual actions create long-term consequences, how small advantages compound into decisive victories, and how thinking multiple moves ahead transforms every decision into an investment in future success. The Go board taught me that there are 3 levels of strategic thinking that every warrior must master. The first level is immediate understanding, the direct consequences of your current actions and choosing moves that create the best short-term outcomes. Most people operate only at this level, reacting to immediate circumstances without considering how today's choices shape tomorrow's possibilities. The second level is intermediate, seeing how current actions create or eliminate future options, understanding the patterns that lead to predictable outcomes, and positioning yourself to take advantage of opportunities that others cannot yet see. This is where most successful people operate, and it's sufficient for achieving good results in stable environments. The third level is long-term understanding, the fundamental forces that shape entire systems, recognizing how small changes can cascade into massive transformations, and positioning yourself to benefit from shifts that may not become obvious for years. This is the level where true strategic mastery reveals itself, and it's what enabled me to remain undefeated in an era when martial skills alone were insufficient for survival. During my wandering years, I would practice this strategic thinking. Every morning as part of my dawn ritual, I would consider not just what I needed to accomplish that day, but how those actions would position me for the challenges and opportunities I could foresee in the coming weeks, months, and years. This wasn't just planning, it was what I called temporal positioning, understanding how to use time as a strategic advantage. I learned to read patterns in human behavior that allowed me to predict outcomes with startling accuracy. Most people telegraph their intentions through subtle signals they're unaware they're sending. They reveal their strengths and weaknesses through their reactions to pressure. They show their true priorities through how they allocate their time and attention when they think no one is watching. This pattern recognition extends far beyond individual behavior to encompass entire organizations, markets, and social movements. Once you understand the underlying forces that drive human action, you can position yourself advantageously relative to changes that seem sudden to others, but are actually the inevitable result of observable trends. Strategic thinking also requires creating multiple options and backup plans, rather than betting everything on a single approach. In combat, I never entered a duel with only one strategy. I would prepare 3 or 4 different approaches based on my opponent's likely responses, ensuring that I could adapt quickly when circumstances changed without losing momentum or advantage. The daily practice of strategic thinking transforms every decision into an opportunity for compound advantage, every setback into valuable intelligence, and every success into a platform for even greater achievement. Perfect strategy, however, means nothing without perfect timing, the ability to recognize and act upon the single moment when victory becomes inevitable. Strategy without perfect timing is like a sword without an edge, technically correct but ultimately ineffective when it matters most. I kept a simple sundial that taught me to observe the natural rhythms of day and opportunity. This humble device revealed something profound. There are 2 kinds of time that govern all human affairs. Clock time moves uniformly, measuring duration with mechanical precision. But psychological time expands and contracts based on circumstances, readiness, and the rightness of situations for change. The most famous demonstration of this principle came during my duel with Sasaki Kojiro on Ganru Island. Everyone expected me to arrive at the appointed hour, but I understood that punctuality would have served his strategy rather than mine. Kojiro was a master of intimidation who used precise timing to unnerve his opponents. By arriving hours late, I turned his greatest strength into his weakness. While Kojiro waited in increasing agitation, his mind became scattered with anger and impatience. The longer he waited, the more his famous composure cracked. By the time I stepped onto that beach, the psychological battle was already won. He was fighting not just me, but his own frustrated expectations. The victory came not from superior swordsmanship, but from superior understanding of when to act and when to wait. This taught me the crucial difference between being ready and being ripe. You can be technically prepared for an opportunity while the situation itself is not yet ready to support your success. Trying to force action during unripe moments wastes energy and often creates resistance that makes future success more difficult. Learning to recognize ripeness requires developing what I called my internal timekeeper, an intuitive sense of when people, situations, and circumstances are most receptive to change. This involves reading subtle signals, the quality of someone's attention during conversations, the energy level in group discussions, the underlying tension or relaxation in any environment. I practiced this daily by observing the natural world around me. There's a moment each morning when the light shifts from gray to gold, when birds begin their songs, when the air itself seems to awaken. Learning to sense these natural transitions taught me to recognize similar moments in human affairs, when someone is ready to hear difficult feedback, when a group is prepared to commit to bold action, when markets are ripe for innovation. The patience to wait for perfect timing requires enormous confidence in your ability to recognize and act upon the moment when it arrives. Most people act too early because they fear the opportunity will pass, or too late because they're waiting for certainty that never comes. The warrior learns to distinguish between productive waiting and destructive hesitation. Developed exercises for strengthening this timing sense. During practice sessions, I would deliberately pause before striking, learning to feel the exact moment when my opponent's guard dropped or his attention wavered. In conversations, I practiced recognizing when someone had finished processing one idea and was ready to consider the next. Perfect timing creates what appears to be effortless successions that seem to flow naturally from circumstances. rather than being forced upon them. When your timing is precise, people say yes to requests they would normally refuse. Opportunities open that seemed impossible, and resistance dissolves before your approach. Perfect timing requires a weapon sharper than any focus that can cut through any distraction to maintain clarity in the crucial moment. Perfect timing requires a weapon sharper than any sword, unshakable focus that can cut through any distraction to maintain clarity in the crucial moment. There was a specific boulder near a mountain stream where I practiced Zazen meditation, training my mind to become like a laser beam that could concentrate all its power on a single point. This rock became my classroom for the most essential skill any warrior can develop: the ability to direct and sustain attention with absolute precision regardless of external circumstances. During life-threatening duels, I discovered that scattered attention meant certain death. If my mind wandered even momentarily to concerns about reputation, fear of injury, or thoughts about what would happen after the fight, my opponent would exploit that instant of divided focus to land a fatal blow. This taught me that attention is not just important, it's literally a matter of life and death in any situation that truly matters. I learned to recognize the modern epidemic of fractured attention and its devastating consequences. Most people live in a state of continuous partial attention, dividing their mental energy among dozens of concerns simultaneously. They check messages while having conversations, think about work during family time, and worry about future problems while attempting to focus on present tasks. This scattered approach guarantees mediocre results in everything because excellence requires complete presence. The warrior develops what I called single-pointed focus, the ability to bring the full power of consciousness to bear on whatever deserves attention in this moment. This isn't just concentration, it's a state of unified awareness where thinking, feeling, and acting become perfectly aligned toward a single purpose. I practiced this skill through specific daily exercises. Each morning, I would select one object, stone, a flower, a flame, and focus my complete attention on it for gradually increasing periods. When my mind wandered, I would gently return my attention without judgment or frustration. This wasn't about forcing concentration, but about training the mind to rest naturally in focused awareness. This training revealed something profound about the relationship between focus and confidence. When your attention is scattered, you feel overwhelmed and uncertain because you're trying to hold too many variables in consciousness simultaneously. When your focus is unified, you feel calm and capable because you're dealing with only one thing at a time. Even when that one thing is complex or challenging, single-pointed focus also transforms your relationship with pressure and stress. Instead of being overwhelmed by the magnitude of what you're facing, you learn to narrow your attention to the next specific action required. This creates what I called productive tunnel vision, awareness that's broad enough to maintain strategic understanding, but focused enough to execute with precision. The daily practice of strengthening focus creates compound benefits that extend far beyond individual tasks. When people sense that you're fully present with them, they respond with greater trust and openness. When you bring complete attention to learning, you master skills in a fraction of the time required by those who study distractedly. When you focus entirely on important projects, you produce results that appear almost superhuman to those who've never experienced unified attention. Focus without proper energy management, however, leads to burnout and diminishing returns over time. Focus without proper energy management, however, leads to burnout and diminishing returns over time, which is why every warrior must master the way of sustainable intensity. I kept a detailed training schedule written on a scroll that revealed one of my most important discoveries: the rhythm of effort and recovery that allows peak performance to be maintained indefinitely rather than experienced in brief, unsustainable bursts. This scroll showed me that the difference between warriors who achieve lasting greatness and those who flame out early isn't superior pacing. During my early years, I made the mistake that destroys many promising fighters. I believed that more effort always produced better results. I would train until exhaustion, practice until my hands bled, and push myself beyond reasonable limits in the belief that intensity alone would forge invincibility. This approach produced rapid initial improvements, followed by plateaus, injuries, and periods where my performance actually declined despite increased effort. The turning point came when I observed master craftsmen forging swords. They would heat the metal to precise temperatures, work it with focused intensity, then allow it to cool and rest before the next heating cycle. Too much heat too quickly made the steel brittle. Too little heat made it impossible to shape. But the right rhythm of intensity and recovery created blades of legendary strength and flexibility. I began applying this principle to my own development and discovered what I called sustainable intensity, the ability to operate at high levels of performance without depleting the resources that make such performance possible. This meant learning to distinguish between productive effort that builds capability and destructive effort that consumes it. Sustainable intensity requires understanding your natural energy rhythms rather than fighting against them. I noticed that my mental clarity peaked in the early morning hours. My physical strength was greatest in late afternoon, and my creative insights often emerged during periods of relaxed contemplation. By aligning my most demanding activities with my natural energy peaks, I could accomplish more in less time while experiencing less fatigue. Strategic rest became as important as strategic effort. I learned that recovery isn't the absence of activity, it's activity that restores rather than depletes. For me, this meant meditation that cleared mental fatigue, gentle movement that released physical tension, and time in nature that renewed my spiritual energy. These weren't luxuries or signs of weakness, they were essential investments in sustained excellence. The modern world often rewards short-term intensity over long-term sustainability, creating a culture where burnout is worn as a badge of honor rather than recognized as a strategic failure. But the warrior understands that consistency trumps heroics, that steady progress over years produces results that sporadic brilliance never can. I developed what I called the warrior's rhythm, intense focused effort followed by strategic recovery, repeated in cycles that could be maintained indefinitely. This rhythm allowed me to remain at peak fighting condition for decades rather than burning out after a few years of spectacular but unsustainable performance. This sustainable approach to intensity becomes even more powerful when combined with allies who share your commitment to excellence and can support your journey toward mastery. Sustainable intensity becomes even more powerful when combined with allies who share your commitment to excellence and can support your journey toward mastery. I carried a small carved token that I would give to training partners who proved themselves worthy of mutual respect and trust. This simple symbol represented one of the most important lessons of my warrior's path. Your environment determines your evolution, and the people closest to you will either accelerate your growth or anchor you to mediocrity. During my years of wandering, I encountered thousands of martial artists, but only a handful earned my alliance token. These weren't necessarily the most skilled fighters, but they possessed something rarer, the combination of high standards, genuine commitment to improvement, and the character to support others' success without jealousy or sabotage. I learned this lesson painfully when I spent months training with a group that seemed impressive on the surface, but gradually revealed themselves to be more interested in appearing skilled than becoming skilled. They would practice techniques half-heartedly, make excuses for poor performance, and subtly discourage anyone who showed genuine dedication to improvement. Their mediocrity was contagious, and I found my own standards unconsciously declining to match theirs. The contrast became clear when I later encountered a small group of serious practitioners who demanded excellence from themselves and each other. They celebrated breakthrough moments genuinely, offered honest feedback without ego, and created an environment where pushing limits felt natural rather than extreme. In their presence, my development accelerated dramatically because their expectations elevated my performance. Every warrior needs 5 types of people in their circle. First, you need mentors, those who have already achieved what you're working toward and can guide you past obstacles they've already overcome. Second, you need peers, others at your current level who can practice with you, challenge you, and provide mutual accountability. Third, you need students, those you can teach, because explaining principles to others deepens your own understanding. Fourth, you need competitors, worthy opponents, who force you to raise your game and reveal weaknesses you might otherwise ignore. These aren't enemies, but people whose excellence challenges you to discover your own. Fifth, you need supporters, those who believe in your potential even when you doubt yourself and provide encouragement during difficult periods. The art of building this circle requires both attracting high-caliber people and identifying who deserves your trust and investment. I learned to watch how people behaved when they thought no one was watching, how they treated those who couldn't benefit them, and whether their actions aligned with their stated values over time. Equally important is recognizing when relationships have become toxic to your growth and having the courage to create distance. Some people in your life may be good humans, but poor influences on your warrior development. They may discourage your discipline as obsession, mock your ambitions as unrealistic, or try to pull you back to old patterns that feel comfortable but limit your potential. The warrior learns to love such people from a distance, while protecting the environment necessary for continued growth. This isn't cruelty, it's recognition that you cannot save others by allowing them to drag you down, and that your highest service comes from becoming your best self rather than enabling others. Mediocrity, creating and maintaining this circle of warriors, requires ongoing attention and investment, but it provides the foundation for achievements that would be impossible to sustain alone. Even the strongest warrior faces moments when victory seems impossible, when circumstances align against you, when resources fail, when everything that could go wrong does go wrong. I kept a fragment of a broken sword from what I considered my most difficult duel, not because of my opponent's skill, but because everything I had planned and prepared for went catastrophically wrong in the opening moments. My primary sword snapped against his guard, my footing gave way on rain-slicked ground, and I found myself fighting for my life with nothing but a broken blade and sheer determination. That moment taught me the most valuable lesson any warrior can learn. Your response to impossible circumstances reveals your true character and determines whether setbacks become stepping stones or stumbling blocks. When everything goes wrong, most people panic, give up, or make desperate moves that compound their problems. The warrior sees crisis as the ultimate test of everything he has trained for. As my sword shattered, I felt a moment of pure terror, followed by something I had never experienced before: complete clarity born from having no options except immediate adaptation. With no time for fear or strategy, I became completely present, completely resourceful, completely alive to possibilities I would never have considered under normal circumstances. The broken sword in my hand stopped being a liability and became a unique weapon my opponent had never faced. I discovered that impossible circumstances strip away everything non-essential and reveal the core skills that truly matter. When your carefully laid plans collapse, you learn whether you've been relying on external conditions or internal capability. When your usual tools fail, you discover whether you've developed genuine adaptability or simply memorized techniques that work only under ideal conditions. The psychology of impossible situations is what separates warriors from victims. Victims see obstacles as proof that success is impossible and use circumstances as excuses for giving up. Warriors see obstacles as information about what approaches won't work and opportunities to discover capabilities they didn't know they possessed. Learned to reframe every impossible situation by asking better questions. Instead of "why is this happening to me?" I asked, "what is this situation trying to teach me?" Instead of "how can I get back to my original plan?" I asked what opportunities exist that I couldn't see before. Instead of "what resources do I lack?" I asked "what resources do I have that I haven't fully utilized?" This shift in perspective transforms your relationship with adversity from victimhood to partnership. Every crisis becomes a teacher. Every setback becomes intelligence about what doesn't work. Every failure becomes data for refining your approach. When you stop fighting circumstances and start dancing with them, you discover that obstacles often contain the seeds of breakthrough solutions. The daily practice of maintaining clarity under pressure requires specific training. I would deliberately place myself in uncomfortable situations, training while hungry, practicing in harsh weather, sparring with unfamiliar weapons, not because I enjoyed suffering, but because I wanted to know that my capabilities extended beyond ideal conditions. Victory in impossible circumstances also requires absolute honesty about what you can and cannot control. You cannot control external events, other people's actions, or the timing of opportunities, but you can control your response, your effort, your attitude, and your willingness to adapt when circumstances demand. Flexibility. When you master the art of turning obstacles into advantages, you develop something invaluably shakeable confidence. That no external circumstance can destroy your inner power to create success from any starting point. These principles must become so natural that they guide you without conscious thought, reaching the level I came to understand as unconscious competence of true mastery. In my final years, I carried only a simple wooden sword, having discovered that mastery represents a return to fundamentals at the highest possible level. This plain bokken symbolized something profound. When you have truly mastered any skill, complexity gives way to elegant simplicity, and what once required enormous conscious effort becomes as natural as breathing. I observed this evolution in my own development through 4 distinct stages that every warrior must traverse. In the first stage, conscious incompetence, I didn't know what I didn't know. I was confident in my abilities precisely because I couldn't recognize their limitations. This stage is dangerous because ignorance masquerades as competence, leading to poor decisions based on incomplete understanding. The second stage, conscious incompetence, began when I encountered masters whose skill revealed the vast gaps in my knowledge. This was the most uncomfortable period because I could see how much I needed to learn, but hadn't yet developed the capabilities to bridge those gaps. Many aspiring warriors quit during this stage because the mountain of required learning appears insurmountable. The third stage, conscious competence, arrived after years of dedicated practice, when I could perform techniques correctly, but only through focused attention and deliberate effort. Every movement required conscious decision-making. Every strategy needed careful planning. Every response demanded mental processing before physical action. This stage produces solid results, but consumes enormous mental energy. The fourth stage, conscious competency, merged gradually as daily practice transformed conscious skills into unconscious wisdom. My body began responding to threats before my mind recognized them. Strategic insights arose spontaneously from situations without lengthy analysis. The right action became obvious, not through thinking, but through trained intuition that had absorbed thousands of hours of experience. This unconscious competence creates what appears to others as effortless excellence. When reporters watch master athletes perform, they often describe movements that seem to flow naturally from the situation rather than being imposed upon it. This isn't genetic gift, it's the result of practice so thorough that conscious and unconscious capabilities have merged into unified mastery. The daily disciplines I've shared with you are designed to accelerate your progression through these stages. Your morning warrior ritual builds unconscious competence in mental preparation. Regular practice with the 5 rings creates unconscious competence in strategic thinking. Consistent focus training develops unconscious competence in attention management. Deliberate work with timing and energy creates unconscious competence in sustainable performance. The freedom that comes from unconscious competence is extraordinary. When fundamental skills no longer require conscious attention, your mental energy becomes available for higher level challenges and creative solutions. You can respond to complex situations with the same natural ease that most people bring to simple tasks. But with this mastery comes profound responsibility. When you possess capabilities that others lack, you become accountable for using them wisely and sharing them generously. The warrior who achieves unconscious competence must also develop unconscious service, the natural inclination to lift others rather than dominate them. I learned that true mastery isn't about being superior to others. It's about being superior to your former self while maintaining enough humility to continue learning from anyone who has knowledge to offer. As my journey nears its end, I want to leave you with the essence of everything I've discovered about the warrior's path and the legacy you're capable of creating. As my journey nears its end, I want to leave you with the essence of everything I've discovered about the warrior's path and the legacy you're capable of creating. I wrote my final letter on simple paper with careful brushstrokes, knowing these would be the last words I could offer to future generations seeking the way of the warrior. In those final pages, I tried to capture what I had learned about victory that transcends winning and losing, about strength that grows through service, and about the responsibility that comes with undefeated spirit. After 61 duels without defeat, countless battles, and decades of refining the warrior's discipline, I understand now that the greatest victory was never about conquering opponents, it was about conquering the limitations, fears, and small thinking that keep most people trapped in mediocrity. Every external battle I won was simply a reflection of internal battles I had already fought and won during countless dawn preparations. The true meaning of being undefeated is not that you never face setbacks, failures, or moments of doubt. It means that no external circumstance can defeat your commitment to growth, excellence, and service. You may lose individual battles, but you cannot be defeated as long as you maintain the warrior's discipline of beginning each day with intention, courage, and dedication to becoming worthy of your highest potential. This warrior's path transforms everyone you encounter because authentic strength is magnetic in ways that force and manipulation never can be. When people sense that you've done the inner work to master yourself, they naturally seek your guidance, trust your judgment, and draw inspiration from your example. Your excellence gives others permission to pursue their own. I've shared with you the 5 rings that govern all victory, the morning disciplines that create unshakable foundation, the strategic thinking that turns obstacles into advantages, and the sustainable practices that make mastery possible over decades rather than months. But knowledge without application is worthless philosophy. An application without persistence is temporary motivation. Your responsibility now is to begin, not tomorrow when conditions are perfect, not next week when you have more time, not next month when life becomes less complicated. Today, this morning, with whatever resources you currently possess, and whatever limitations you currently face, the warrior's path begins with a single step, taken in the direction of who you're capable of becoming. Every morning you practice these disciplines. You're not just improving your own life, you're contributing to a legacy that extends far beyond your individual success. You're proving that excellence is possible, that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary results through extraordinary commitment, and that the warrior's way still works in any era and any circumstances. Start with your sacred hour tomorrow morning. Choose your ground, flow like water, ignite your inner fire, scan your environment, and center yourself in the void of infinite possibility. Face your inner demons with courage. Think strategically about your long-term positioning, master the timing of your actions, and build sustainable intensity that can carry you for decades. The way of the morning warrior is now yours to walk. Honor it through daily practice, share it through generous service, and pass it forward to those who will. Carry the flame when your time of active leadership ends. Begin tomorrow at dawn. The world is waiting for what you will become.